Welcome to podcast episode 2.
Our episode one got minimal likes, but not as minimal as Star Wars episode one.
Well, I don't know about that.
Some people didn't like it.
Yeah, but at least people saw it. I don't think anyone's actually seen ours.
It's okay.
It's literally in the darkest corner of the internet. It's
Yeah,
okay.
it's fine.
No one could see it someday. Okay. So can you say what we were going to talk about today? Because I feel like you'll introduce it better.
Okay, today is the intersection between high control dynamics and corporate settings.
There it is.
Yep.
Okay, but before we go into that, I have a confession about death, just
Okay,
from last time. Are you ready for my confession?
tie it in.
So last time I felt like very like in the theology or in the philosophy space, and it towards the
Mhm.
end, I was like, you know what? It is what it is. We don't know. It'll be fine. I'm good with it. And then this morning I went on a jog, and at the end of the jog, I think I just have a lot like there's suffering in the world. There's a lot of people that need things. There's like a
Mhm.
lot of things on my to-do list, and I sort of had this emotional release, and I ended up walking in the forest crying about death. So
Like about the impending death that you are going towards, or
yeah, just that like I don't like that this time and experience is going to end. And even if I can
Mm.
find a place to be at peace a lot that feels good with like I don't know what happens and I'll be okay. In that
Mhm.
moment I was like, but I don't want it to end. I don't want this. I like being alive. I like being a
Mhm.
I don't know what's next and I am not ready to find out. So I
Yeah.
was upset.
That's the opposite of suicidal ideation, where you're like, this could end and I wouldn't be mad, you know? It's the
Yeah.
opposite of like having like a fervor for life, you know? And
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people experience that.
Oh, well, breaking news. I did this morning. I was like, I don't want it to end. I just like the mystery of life and experience, even if it's hard.
Yeah. So you don't believe in reincarnation?
Maybe. I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know what will happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at peace with whatever it does, but I'm just not like ready to find out and move on. I would like to stay here, please, and like give this a few more rounds, which I
Yeah.
likely will. That was just
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
fleeting this morning.
Yeah. I think time is just like it's such a thing that you become more aware of as you get older. And because it's like, when you're young, you just have like forever to live, And so like once you like hit your 30s or 40s, it's like
Mhm.
could half my life be over by this time, or half my conscious life, if you have like family members with dementia and stuff like that you've like watched set in,
Yeah.
like could this be more limited than I previously realized?
Yeah, it
And
gets real.
yeah, it's weird, like looking back and then looking forward. And like as therapists, we're always telling people like to be in the moment.
I know.
I
I've
think
been
that's really hard to do.
Well, yeah, and it started with me looking at this trail through the trees, and I was like, you know what, Jennifer? Like, it's beautiful because these trees and this earth have been here far before you, and they'll be
Mm,
here long after you. And so, for a moment, and I was like, thinking if I could have a dialogue with the earth, and I'd be like, you've seen all of this, and you've seen people
mm,
come and go, and like what like kind of wisdom is. And then I was, for a
dang.
minute, I was at peace, and then I was like, but I'm not ready.
Yeah.
Upset.
That's so interesting that like you found that connection through nature, because that sounds like a conversation that like someone would have with God, you know. Like someone would be like, "Oh, you've seen everything, from the past, and you know what's going to happen and stuff like that." It's like you found that connection through your relationship with like speaking to the earth. That's interesting.
There's a fancy word for that. I don't remember.
We don't know what it is.
I have to Google.
Someone smarter than us came up with the concept.
It's not pantheism, it's like the deity of the earth, that the earth
Okay.
is alive as like a
Yeah.
divine, the
Yeah.
divine. Anyway, let's talk about.
Okay.
Okay, do you have
Corporate
anything?
America.
Kick us off. Do you have anything where to start? Because
Gosh.
it's high control stuff shows up in religion. We do that a lot of religious trauma stuff, but like it
Hmm.
also shows up in organizations.
Yeah. I think my biggest pet peeve, the first thing that always comes to mind is when companies use the words like family. You know, we are family, welcome to our family. In churches, you see signs that say welcome home, you know? And so, like, when there's a lot of teachings and stuff about that, and people are starting to feel some like dissonance or discomfort or manipulation in the space, and they're like, I think I want to leave, but that like whole doctrine that they've been taught about like welcome home and you finally belong and stuff like that, it makes it hard for people to leave, you know? And
Yeah.
so at a job, you know, there's like, oh, well, we're the family here and, you know, welcome to our family and stuff like that. And so when, oh, no one's getting bonuses this year, you
Yeah.
know, how do you balance and reconcile like that something that's repeated consistently, like as part of their brand to their employees? How do you reconcile that with I'm getting ripped off, you know, or some families have a thing of like family members don't sue family members, you know? So if you're in a situation of like, you know, wrongful termination or sexual harassment or something that like could legit be prosecuted,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, well, you know, family members don't sue family members. And I feel like some corporations plant these seeds in their employees' minds strategically to try to reduce some of their liability that an employee could cause
Yeah.
the company.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's like one of my biggest pet peeves of them saying we are family. And I think it's really manipulative.
Do you think that it is on a spectrum of intention? Because I'm thinking some corporations and like owners or whatever, they like know. They know that they're at least they
Yeah.
know a little enough to know about how psychology works that if they call their employees a family, they're gonna like work better for them and they're gonna have like an element of control. But then like I think sometimes it starts out as this like seemingly positive thing to say. And
Hmm.
then it becomes a problem the first time that an imbalance of needs and wants happens between the
Yeah.
power people, like the boss and the
Yeah.
employee. So being a family is not a problem until your boss will not give you a raise or
Right.
is exploiting the workers and then denying a conversation because you're like, or
Hmm.
using the family terminology to like get away with stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Like I always say it's not a problem until it's a problem.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so yeah, people can be doing this like out of the goodness of their heart or because, you know, maybe if it's a family business and these people come from like securely attached family, them saying, you know, oh, we're like a family here, that means something to them, you know, of like, we want to have a good and open relationship with our employees or something like that. But like other people have a different connotation for what family means, you know? And
Yeah.
so it's like, you know, every person comes with like a lot of baggage regarding what family is and stuff like that, you know? So I just feel like that language is so emotionally charged and extra that it doesn't really have a place in business or like, especially when in
Mhm.
a corporation, there is a hierarchical structure, you know? So what exactly are you inviting people into when you say that you're family, you
Yeah.
know? Like in the Bible, it, you know, there's kind of like some sort of encouragement to like, you know, fix things with your peer before you take it to court. You know, try to settle things outside of court.
Keep it in the family,
It's a biblical concept.
community.
Try
And
to
it
handle it
cost a
out.
lot of people a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Try to handle it outside of court. You know, it's a
Yeah.
biblical concept. All right. Christians don't sue Christians, you know.
Christians
Um,
don't report other Christians. That's the biggest one
mm,
for child.
boom. All right. Say more about that.
Well, I'm just adding to your list.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I think things get really muddied when you bring in such emotional concepts to something that's like, you know, when it comes down to it, the business makes moves to protect their infrastructure, their money, their brand, you know, and yeah.
Okay, to me, this goes back to our 23-year-old selves that used to
Hmm.
argue with people about dogs going to heaven or
Yes.
versus like I'm 42 now. But so
Hmm.
like 23-year-old me would hear someone call me family or use family in a job or a religion, and I would like naive, so naive, no
Hmm.
life experience. I haven't
Yeah.
seen problems be a problem yet. And I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
I love the idea that we're a family. They must really care. 20 years later of life experience, like I've seen it go sideways so severely
Yeah.
where those high control principles of being a family have caused a lot of harm, like my
Hmm.
experience plus other people's. That now when someone says like we're a family and it's a work environment, I am like red flags all over. Like
Yeah.
it's not even a like a compliment to me. I'm like I will be watching you. Like this is a concern.
Yeah. Yeah. I would hesitate to apply for a job that like has that on their website or something like that. Because it's like people protect their own interests, and yeah, a lot of times other people end up getting like thrown under the bus or something like that, or just their work gets eliminated if they pose a threat to something else. Like, what family does that? you know?
But yeah, and like I think you have to learn. It's some people you have to learn that people are going to protect their own interests.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like I've looked back at experience I had in the past now, and I wish I could have told myself, like, Jennifer, they're working you.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They're
Hmm.
working you. Like I wish I would have had the wisdom now to know that someone
Hmm.
that's telling me we're family or love bombing me,
Yes.
boyfriends, work, religion, all
Hmm.
they had their own intentions at heart, and consciously or unconsciously they knew that I
Yeah.
was kind of manipulatable and that it
Hmm.
was working. But I
Yeah.
wish I could have told myself.
Yep. So, how does love bombing happen in the corporate setting?
Well, like I had a when I first entered the counseling industry, I had a job offer from someone and I felt like I was new to the job industry,
Hmm.
taking a long break. And
Hmm.
I feel like your face is saying don't say this
Oh
on a
no,
podcast.
I'm
So
not.
I'm not going to say any names.
You don't have any like HIPAA
That's right.
protection like with this topic. This is your work history. It's all good. Unless you signed an NDA.
I did not. Nope, there's no NDA.
Oh, okay. I'm writing that down because NDAs is a thing. All right, you go ahead.
Also interesting when a family work environment makes you sign an
Hmm.
NDA.
Hmm.
Red flag.
Yeah.
So like my work experience, the strongest of this was like I was vulnerable because I was joining the workforce in therapy after 10 years off and I didn't think I was hireable. I had a very
Yeah.
low self-esteem about whether I could like my mind would be able to like catch up from 10 years of motherhood. And so
Hmm.
someone from a business, like I put feelers out and they were like, oh my gosh, yes, 10 exclamation points. We would love you. You know, I thought I was interviewing and I had to do this resume. Mysteriously, I was like scooped up very quickly, offered a job quickly, and I was like, I felt chosen and I
Hmm.
felt qualified because I didn't feel qualified, but someone else who was going to benefit by my employee status made me feel qualified.
It's hitting so hard
Does it?
in my personal experience.
Yes. Maybe someone else in the corner of the internet will resonate. I really did. I was like, oh my gosh, what a great opportunity. And in some ways it was, but as it played out, it turned out to be an exploitative situation that I eventually had to get out of. And it was framed as family. And so it took me a lot of years to understand that, like, while they were telling me I was family, they were really benefiting from my labor and work at a disproportionate financial rate. And I had to work
Sure.
through all the like guilt of leaving because I felt like I was doing something wrong to
Mm,
my family.
yeah. And well,
Juxtaposition.
now that you and I are practice owners, like we know what type of revenue can come in by taking on interns or taking on people that like don't have any experience.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah, like that's how a lot of practices gain so much revenue is by, taking a percentage and stuff like that. And so like when that percentage is unfair, yet, oh, you have nowhere else to go, or it's kind of implied that like you're so new, we're going to start you off at this rate, like you're still growing, like I don't know. And I feel like the counseling profession, like given that it's years of practicum, internship, supervisory experience, it's easy to talk people into that like submissive position of like, you don't know anything and you really need our help. We're doing you a favor, kind
I
of.
know.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's
Well,
very,
they probably wouldn't use that language of like, we're doing you a favor, but like some of the benefits that are involved, it has that implication or like, that feel. Like, you might be trapped in a work environment because they kind of like have all your documentation held over your head of like they have to test that you did your hours to the board or whatever. And so it's like, I've already done 75% of my hours. If I rub these people the wrong way, are they going to withhold that from me? Or are they going to tell the board, actually, this person isn't ready for licensure? So it puts you into a very submissive situation,
yeah,
and, counseling profession aside, when the job market's so bad, people end up in similar submissive positions in corporate America. Yeah. So they can't speak their voice, kind of have to like continue to be manipulated or continue to allow people to make money off of them.
yeah.
And yeah,
All
but
that I would want in a situation like that is transparency.
yeah.
It's sort of like it's unfortunate that interns don't get paid as much, and I understand when you've done all that school for counseling, you've done a
Mhm.
bachelor's, you've done a master's, you've done all your like practicum stuff in the school, and then you graduate and it's like, and you're working for like 20 bucks an hour, like it's
Mhm.
very frustrating. But I do understand it. I just want someone to be transparent with me about where the money is going. Because if you're making 20 and they're making 80, why?
Oh, for sure.
Is that
Mhm.
going to overhead? I think it's fair to share more information because sometimes practice owners say that they're like breaking even and they're not. They're making
Bro.
off of that.
Or like they'll say, this is because we covered like a malpractice insurance policy on you, because you're a liability to our business. And everyone is, right? All employees are, right? It's not whatever. Like, oh, we took out a malpractice insurance policy. Okay. So I was like, dang, they've spent all this money, they've invested so much in me. And like I need to be grateful for that. Oh, guess what? When I bought my own malpractice policy, it was like $200 a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that got paid for with 2 hours of my time that was billed to insurance
Yeah.
for the year.
And you do
Right?
the math, and that owner has made $20,000 off of
Yes.
your client time,
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Wait, do you have a time when you were love bombed and felt like, because you said that was really resonating? When,
In in a job setting,
yeah.
well, I think most of that, like in my experience, happened in ministry jobs, you
Mm.
know? And like it's just that's such a hard thing to untangle. Like, was it the job or was it ministry, that was causing that or something? Um, but I think love bombing can come out in a corporate setting with like, them being like, oh, we're investing so much in you, or like, we're gonna fly you out here to do this like team building thing. And like, I don't know, I just feel like some of those dynamics can turn into like getting people roped in and stuff like that. But like all of this is so vague sometimes because like, yeah, a team building exercise is important, but how is it done and like, what reasons is there for it? Like, okay, something that I feel like is high control, I don't know if this is changing the subject too much, is our belief as a society that it's rude to talk about your compensation.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah,
That's
that
what I
is
mean, transparency.
yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
that is such a high control dynamic because you get people that have the same experience and they're at the same licensure level or the same seniority level in the company and what have you. And
Yep.
oh, they find out that their counterpart is making $20,000 a year more than they are. And
Yes.
so, why? Companies, I think, have strategically put this out there that like, no, don't talk about your salary. It's rude to do that. Or you'll
Yeah.
make someone feel bad if you do that, or stuff like that. But that just ends up with them not having to give people fair wages.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think it's a great
okay.
one.
So for my example, where I felt
Yeah.
like love bombed and then like a little bit manipulated by those emotional dynamics,
Hmm.
about transparency, like I made a spreadsheet of every itemized thing that I could consider, hey, if I go into private practice for myself, here's what I expect to be paying on expenses, and here's what I expect to make. Here's what I'm being paid here. It was like easily over $10,000 difference, which is a big deal. And I was told based on that spreadsheet, I was like, you're doing quick math. It was like, I think a lot of people do quick math in their head and they don't really know what they're talking about. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I've kept the spreadsheet and all my numbers were dead accurate.
That's,
Like,
well, that's not love bombing. That's like an implication that you're dumber than the practice owner because of their position of authority. You know,
correct.
like, oh, silly girl, you don't know. Like,
Yes.
you don't know what the value of a dollar is, or you don't know what actual reimbursement rates are, or something like that. Like, that's just like putting you in a position where like you have to submit. And they're like, you're so limited.
Well, that would be the 1, 2, 3 playbook of working for a coercive control or high control group. Number one is love bombing, and then
Hmm.
the sweet syrupy, like, you're the best, you're chosen, we love that you're here.
Yeah.
Number two is like an aggressive like challenge of like you
Hmm.
actually don't know what you're talking about, or like
Hmm.
low key not threat, but just
Okay.
low key
Yep.
like tearing you down. Like, don't try us. Like, if you go
Yeah.
out, you will fail. Why would you do that? Why would you
Yep.
even ask that question?
Yeah.
And then to me, number three is pulling the victim card. So like making the employee feel like they're causing harm and playing off like, oh, you're really victimizing me, that you're leaving and taking advantage of me by not staying and being loyal, and spinning the emotional guilt trip on them.
Mm.
That's my one,
That,
two, three playbook.
that, yeah, that's a thing. How
Copy.
many people go into a meeting to either ask for a raise or to quit, and they come out of it like extra submissive to the company's will, you know? Um, I feel like love bombing happens too in corporate settings with titles. Like you're given a special title.
Vice president is now a title for everything.
Oh my gosh. I
Yes.
was, there was this one job that I was given this ridiculous title. It was so long and special. And the boss or whatever, he had this like meeting with me where he was kind of like, making this like an insightful experience, and like kind of like I was getting knighted,
Yes.
like, yeah, like I'm
Scam.
coming up with this special title for you, and only you will have it. And like, this is going to just like embody all of your potential and stuff like that. And then that same like job situation, they would buy you 1,000 business cards,
Yep.
like a literal 1,000 business cards.
Yep.
And okay, so with my business that I actually like use business cards and stuff like that, I'm like I'm gonna get 200, especially if I have like my business address on it or something like that, because like things can change all the time. But I'm like, someone giving me 1,000 business cards, um,
Yeah.
that I don't know, like as a 20, how old was I? As a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, you're given 1,000 business
What can you
cards
even
at
do
this.
with those? You don't have any contacts.
Gosh.
Funny.
And all I know is like, oh dang, it would be a shame to throw all these away. Not that that would like super keep me at a job, but I'm talking about like when I was a different person. Like,
Did it work on you though? Did the title and the business cards like butter you up a little bit?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
It
It was
made me,
on me
yeah,
too.
it made me feel like, okay, like I'm legit now. Or like as a counselor, when you go from practicum, they're like, oh, we want you to stay on for your internship. Like, oh, we trust you enough clinically for you to stay on as a licensed professional. Like, I'm going to risk my supervisory license to take you under my wing. Like, there's some liability involved, but like, I know that you're trustworthy. There's just like, there's so much language that comes around a lot of that. That's like, we're taking you on,
Yeah.
and you know.
It's a risk to us. You should feel
Yeah. But
very
it's
grateful.
there's actually like dollar signs in their eyes.
I know that's the worst part. And they know
Yeah.
the math of how much the business cards cost or the little pin they're going to give you with the little like no cost title. And they know how much they're going to make on their bank
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah. Or there's people, they ask for a raise and they're like, no, but we're going to give you this title
Yep.
instead. That that costs them $0 to
Yeah.
change someone's title,
Okay. I just
but
had
it works.
that happened in the situation I'm talking about. People would
Oh,
get titles and like a responsibility at a new role in the company to feel like they were a part, but then that role they
yeah.
were doing, they get like very minimal pay and it was making and generating so much more income. So it would just basically it would be like a confrontation about a raise, and instead of
Yeah.
getting a raise, they'd have a second job added for also not that much
Sure.
money. So
Yeah. Yeah.
double down how bad
Mhm.
it was.
Yeah. Like as a counselor, it's like, hey, I'd like a higher percentage of compensation. They're like, you know what? We can't do that right now
Yeah.
because of the economy and because of the overhead. But I know you're getting your supervisory designation soon. So we're going to make you the clinical director of our
Yes.
agency.
Yep.
You feel so important to be the clinical director. And
Yeah.
guess what? That just added 10 hours a week of administrative
Paid
stuff.
at paid at minimum wage.
Yeah. Yep.
But you get a new business card.
Yeah, you do. You get 1,000 new business cards.
And a little bit to go on your resume. I would say the thing you can get out of that is still like it does pad your resume. Even
Mhm.
title, you can take that with you.
If you can see through all the games and if
Yes.
you can see through all the manipulation to make you stay
Yes.
and actually leverage that into another position, sure.
That's the secret. It's being
Mhm.
able to play the game,
Mhm.
know they're working you, and
Yeah.
kind of not use them, but use the opportunity while it benefits you and know the exact second that it's going to switch. Because, like, for us, it was licensure. I
Yeah.
needed somewhere to start. And as soon as I was licensed and I could go on my own, I was like, bye. Like,
Yeah.
it's no longer an equal exchange of goods and services for me.
Yes. Yep.
If I would have known that and known I was getting played, it would have made it better.
Yeah.
It
Like
just happened.
everyone, huh?
I got an email today and
What?
it was like from our HOA. Like I've been
Mhm.
running an HOA for our neighborhood and we pay a property management company to run things.
Mhm.
And the guy's genuinely nice, but he sent an email and he was like, "Hey, I didn't catch you after the meeting. I just want to thank you so much for like what a great job you're doing and all of that." And I read it to my husband and he was like, "He's just buttering you up so y'all will stay and not fire him as a property manager." And I was like, I don't like saying that about another human and I like to think it's the positive intentions, but also I'm aware that it's business. It
It
is
is
business.
business. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So I caught it now.
Well, okay. Let's do a flippity flop on that
Okay.
because in a church, okay, arguably it is business too. You know,
Oh, it's
counting on the revenue that a person could bring in from
yeah.
their tithes or whatever. But in a case where it's like, you're working with college students, they're not bringing in much revenue. So the love bombing with them occurs also to like retain stuff because like no one wants to go to a church and you be like one of five people there, like it be like empty or whatever. So I think in that case, like the added value that individuals bring is that it's like the party exists, so more people are coming to the party.
Yeah.
Not like Michael Scott. Do you remember when he went to that convention and he was like, "Oh, there's a party in this hotel room or whatever." And like one person came to it and he was the only one in there listening to music. And the guy's like, "Is this where the party is?" And he's like, "Yeah." But the guy's like, "No, I'm not staying for a two-person party."
It's visual effects.
Yes. But yeah, that's the added value of people that aren't bringing in revenue,
Well,
you
and
know?
manual labor that they're going to
Mhm.
get free because young
Oh,
people
for real.
are so
Good point.
tappable for that.
Working in the nursery.
Being missionaries, going
Yeah.
doing the hard labor. Yeah,
Mhm.
working missionary, being sorry, yeah, being working in the nursery, working with the youth group,
Yes.
going on mission trips.
Yeah.
And then they're tapping the middle-aged people for tithing. That's
Yeah.
the Actually, I think they're tapping the young people too, and they're just like They'll tap whatever they can.
Yeah.
Oh my
Hmm.
God. Religion and Business documentary is coming out in January. I cannot
What
wait.
is?
A whole docu-series by Amazon. It's like
Uh-huh.
9 parts. It's called The Business of Religion.
Oh, all
It
right.
looks good.
Been there, done that.
Not even affiliated with this podcast. Unsponsored ad.
Unsponsored plug. Oh my gosh. I'm just thinking, okay, you know how we're like very aware of colonialism,
Mhm.
like nowadays. And it's like as you deconstruct and as you like come into ethics and reconstructing beliefs and stuff like that, like you can't help but to realize how much colonization has to do with like a lot of these dynamics. And so like
Yeah.
as you and I are talking, and I'm like, people are looking at other human beings with dollar signs in their eyes. I'm
Yes.
I'm like, okay, this isn't new, but of like people, literally trading others, or modern day prostitution, like where people are sex trafficked and things like that. Like it's a way to use people for financial gain. And I think like there's a fine line between colonialism and corporate settings too.
Okay, I have a way to take that concept a little deeper, a
Do
little
it.
more ancient. Okay, what about like, because you read the book Sapiens, right?
Yeah. I
Okay,
read some of it, full disclosure.
I read most of it, I think. So the idea that was presented is that the reason Homo sapiens evolved like and stayed into the people we are today versus
Hmm.
other versions of like Homo erectus. I can't remember the other names, the other
Hmm.
forms of, it's not sapiens, whatever, the other forms of like human-like
Hmm.
species, was that we were able to cooperate
Okay.
and
Mhm.
work together and
Yeah.
under a common theme. So to your question, like I think there's this balance between coming together in an organized structure is part of what we all need for survival. I
Hmm.
think when we come together in an organized structure, usually someone ends up exploiting another person
Yeah.
benefiting. It's like
Hmm.
it's kind of a dialectic.
It is. Yeah. I think it's possible for that not to happen, like to have people that like are really there for like professional formation and like to help someone grow professionally and
Yeah.
stuff and like maintain their business afloat versus something that's like very disproportionate and you kind of like making money off of someone else's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you could use a different form of like I think it'd be better for people to say straight up, this is a business and not this is a family.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
explain the mutual benefits of the business partnership.
Yes.
Hey, I'm not going to pay you as much because you're an intern and I'm going to benefit from that, but I'm also taking a cut because XYZ. But I feel like my cut is fair based on this, and it's up for a discussion or
Yeah.
not. Like,
Hmm.
like more transparency.
Yeah.
We should be able to do it better.
We should. And I like it's all I feel like so many things boil down to humility, like the humility to listen to someone with like the lived experience, and I think a lot of practice owners forget the lived experience from before, like when you were in your internship and stuff like that, and they're not willing to listen to people that are currently in internship, like
Yeah.
having therapists, which is a very demanding job and it takes an emotional toll, but like having a therapist that is struggling meeting rent for
Yeah.
their own housing on a monthly basis, like that person is not going to provide their best work, or therapists that have to do DoorDash and, things, have like a hustle culture outside of their clinical job. Like it's happening sometimes out of necessity. So if the practice owner isn't willing to like hear that and hear someone's like actual observations about their wages and stuff like that, then like where's the cooperation?
Well, what do you think it is? Is it a personality type that's like going to see an opportunity and grab it regardless? And then there's other people that have more humility. Is it
Like
a human being?
in the like practice owner.
Yeah. Are there just types of people that are going to always consider themselves first and like exploit if they can?
I feel like there's a sense of entitlement with the success that is perceived from someone that is in those like higher up positions.
How do they get themselves there?
How do they work their way up?
Well, like my husband is in sales,
Hmm.
high tech sales. It's very aggressive. The people that make it are pretty brutal. There's
Okay.
not a lot of humility if you're at the top
Okay.
of sales.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then you have a thing like counseling, where like in that industry, you would think more owners and people would be able to
Hmm.
have more empathy.
Yeah.
And yet sometimes they don't. There's still exploitation that happens.
Yeah.
I
I
don't,
don't know. I think that would be a good thing to explore.
yeah.
But like, I think, uh, well, then there's the whole thing about your blind spot. Like, some people are like, no, that's just how it is. You need to manage your money better,
Yeah.
because like they don't have the awareness of like actual societal struggles or like oppressive infrastructure that exists in society you
Yeah.
know so there's just kind of like, nope, I'm keeping this thing afloat and that's how it is. And we have all been there. I had to work my way up too and stuff like that.
Yes.
But it's like, well, all right, your husband makes six figures and he's the one that carries your guys' life insurance. This intern is a single mother with like kids, and your counseling agency where this person's employed doesn't provide any sort of health benefits. So she's having to spend, you know, $800 a month on health insurance for her and her kids. Like, you have to be willing to listen to these people's stories, and recognize that it's like it's not cut and dry. I'm like, well, just submit and just participate and just do it because I did it and I was able to.
Yeah.
Like, you have to look at the privilege that people in power have too. you know
It seems like your word is humility, but my word for that is empathy. It's just
okay.
sort of like ability to cut yourself off from the actual story of that
Hmm.
working therapist who's a single mom who is really
Hmm.
put in a difficult position because
Hmm. Yeah.
someone's going to benefit by it.
Yeah, I could see how that's empathy because you're like taking into account someone else's situation and recognizing that like your experience isn't the end all be all. Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
it's interchangeable.
yeah. But if you were to like go into, I don't know, like if corporate America existed in a boardroom, right? And if you were to give a presentation on, you guys need to, not be colonizers, you need to be more empathetic, you need to have more humility. And so they'd be like, our businesses wouldn't be able to survive that.
I know.
Yeah. You'd be like flipping the pyramid.
Yeah, but are they just saying that because they've never seen it done? Or are they saying that because it benefits them disproportionately to believe that? And that's the question I haven't figured out. Like, is it actually true? Like, trying to be open-minded, like,
Hmm.
is it true that people need to suffer in the beginning and pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and that's part of how it is, and this is just the system as it has to be?
Hmm.
Or is that the narrative that we've believed because
That's a good question.
people have fed it to us who have
Hmm.
benefited disproportionately and
Yeah. Yeah.
unequal share?
Like, don't discuss religion, politics, or your salary. Like those are deeply ingrained concepts that have existed for generations, that people believe. But could it be that that keeps the well-oiled machine
Yeah.
rolling?
The easier low-hanging fruit, I think, is identifying on an individual level when you're being love bombed, when you're,
Hmm.
shit.
Yeah.
There's like this spectrum of like where a business is toxic, but then there's these like outliers specifically where like if someone is telling you it's family, not business, and it's a
Yeah.
business, like run the other
Yeah.
direction. It's not good.
True.
It's not gonna
Yeah.
go.
It's hard to do that. Like, thinking back to my like real young self, it's hard to do that when you feel like you don't have the title or the accolades or the experience to be accepted somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. Or it's like, oh, I'm just using this position as a stepping stone or something like that. It's just like it's all manipulative, like convincing people that they don't have worth unless they have experience, or they don't have worth unless there's some sort of variable involved. Like,
Yeah, it's the emotional manipulation, I think. Because if
mhm,
somebody was
yeah,
going to use you as a like entry level employee and you're like, listen, I get it. I don't have anywhere else to go. I accept your
mhm,
level. Fine. It's when they pull in with like, this is the best possible offer you can have, and I want you
yeah,
to work with me forever. And like that is
mhm,
where it crosses the line for me.
yeah, yeah. Um, okay, before we close, I want to hear what you think about NDAs.
Oh, my first thought of NDAs is all of the culty groups that I've
Yeah.
watched, all the documentaries, read all the books, and
Mm-hmm.
these high control cult groups always have NDAs.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have something to hide.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If
That's
you
the
don't have
purpose
something to hide, like, yeah.
of the
So
truth.
an NDA could be useful if it's like, you know, Garth Brooks comes to your recording studio and he's kind of like just plucking around, like messing around with some songs that he's thinking of maybe publishing, or like he's just practicing and messing around. Like an NDA would prevent you from like recording his crappy singing sessions and publishing them, you
Yep.
know? Or yeah. So
Churches use NDAs all the time.
yeah,
Mega
yeah,
churches,
yeah,
churches with shady stuff going
yeah.
on. So do cults. I think in
Hmm.
psychology, and I
Yeah.
think in
Like I was looking to publish a book, and I was talking to like a publishing house, and they were like, well, what's your book about? And like tell us about the outline of it. And so I'm kind of like holding my material here of like, how do I know you're not going to steal it, or like hire one of your writers to take on this like project of mine? And so I'm kind of like, well, how do I know you're not going to do this? And they're like, oh, we signed an NDA, like that we can't use any of the material that you discuss in this. Like it's basically like you're copywriting it right now, and we're not allowed to use your ideas going
that's a
forward.
good example of an
Yeah.
end.
And that makes sense, because then as the person with the idea, I was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm looking at. And they were able to say, if that was within their realm of like something they would publish or not. Like that makes sense. But when it's like, we were really abusive to you and all this stuff happened that like could make us look bad, you're not allowed to talk about it, or you're going to get sued. And then, of course, like these controlling organizations, they have so much money and like a budget to like mess people up legally and like continue these lawsuits and lawsuits and lawsuits.
Yeah, I mean, talk about we need to do a whole episode on like cults and high control groups because that's
For
so
sure.
interesting too. Like the
Yeah.
love, it starts with love bombing, and that's when they give you the NDA.
Mm.
So special, you're chosen. We love that you're here. Here's a little bit of paperwork to sign.
Oh yeah, sometimes it's hidden like that. Well, other times, like in the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, a lot of those people were like presented with NDAs like at the end.
Oh, at the end. Okay.
Or so, for some of them, it's like, we're not going to give you your severance or your like retirement package and stuff like that unless you sign the NDA. Like that happens in some organizations and stuff like
I
that.
think it's a power and control.
Oh, for sure. For
Because you
sure.
could say, I'm not signing that, I'll just get a lawyer. You just have to have a lot of resources to fight. Oh, I hate it for
But
people.
then your employment contract from the beginning said, upon termination, if you don't sign like all the exit paperwork, you're not entitled to your benefits or something. Like, and who knows? Like, does this stuff hold up in court? I don't know. But sometimes it's just easier to sign it and keep your mouth shut than pay the legal fees and
Yeah,
stuff like that. And places know that.
I know.
Sucks.
Yeah. Well, there's our last thought about it.
That's it. That's
Okay.
it.
That's a wrap on businesses and high control dynamics.
Yep. Yep. We're
Thank you,
obviously,
everyone, for joining us.
yep. We are experts in nothing. Minimal likes.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
Okay, goodbye, everyone.
Bye.